Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Wednesday, April the 16th, 2025. Yesterday, we kind of backtracked to Sunday and talked about Palm Sunday. Now, moving ahead, Jesus has arrived. He had this triumphal entry. Emotions were high. The idea that perhaps the long-awaited, long-promised king has come. What was he going to do next? Well, what we find in the Gospels, and we're following Luke, is Jesus has arrived. He begins to teach, and as he's teaching in the temple every day, we're told that the chief priests and the scribes and the elders, confront him. By what authority are you doing these things? And so he starts to tell a parable. And they watched him and pretended to be sent spies who pretended to be honest in order to trap him by what he said, so that they could hand him over to the Roman governor. In particular, we're reminded of the question, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? And of course, Jesus asks them to show a coin, has Caesar's face on it. He says, well, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, to God the things that are God's. So kind of avoided the trap. The Sadducees, who were the religious group that did not believe in the resurrection. So they pose a hypothetical question of a woman marries consecutively 7 brothers. Each one who dies, she marries the next one, the next one, the next one. Whose wife will she be in the resurrection? Because they don't believe in the resurrection. And Jesus kind of skips away or skirts away from that one by saying that people will not be given in marriage. In the resurrection from the dead, the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. And so they have to grudgingly admit, teacher, you've spoken well. And at that point, they don't dare to ask him any more questions. He continues to teach and warns about what is going to happen. People are going to come in his name and say, I am he, meaning I am the Messiah, the sent one. But he cautions people to be alert, and that brings us, kind of summarize chapters 20 and 21, brings us to chapter 22. Now the festival of unleavened bread, which is called the Passover, was near. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a way to put Jesus to death, for they were afraid of the people. And then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was one of the 12, and he went away and conferred with the chief priests and officers of the temple police about how he might betray him to them. They were greatly pleased and agreed to give him money, so he consented and began to look for an opportunity to betray him to them when no crowd was present. So again, there was all this excitement, anticipation. The crowds are listening to him with, bated breath, eagerly listening to him. And so to move on him would have been very difficult. And then all of a sudden, Judas kind of falls into their laps. Now, when we say the name Judas Iscariot, or even just Judas, we think of a traitor. We think of someone who betrayed his Lord. In our own history, we have somebody like that. His name was Benedict Arnold. Early in the Revolutionary War, was a great soldier, became a general, had a series of battles where he helped win the day, but he felt like he didn't get enough credit. He became disillusioned. At one point, also, he was the military governor of Philadelphia, and he kind of had a very lavish lifestyle and got heavily into debt. So the disillusionment and the debt perhaps tempted him to betray his country. He was going to give the West Point, the post at West Point, where the military academy is located today. That was a key fort along the Hudson River. He was going to betray his country by handing that over to the British. And so we look at Judas, and you have sort of a similar sort of thing. We don't know exactly. We know that he was tempted, that Satan means the tempter. We know he was tempted. Some would say that it was financial. We know from the Gospel of John that in John's version of the story, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus is in Bethany, the home of Lazarus, who he had raised from the dead. And there's a dinner. Martha, it's the sisters Mary and Martha. Martha serves the dinner. Mary takes this costly perfume and anoints Jesus' feet with it. And Judas Iscariot, this is the one place in the Bible we hear maybe the motivation. One of the disciples who was about to betray him, says John, said, "Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" And he said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief and he kept the common purse and used to steal what was put into it. A couple of things there. That's, again, the only indication we have of why, perhaps, what Judas's motivation was. The other thing is the fact that he was the treasurer of the group, if you will, that kept the common purse, means that he had been entrusted with a pretty important responsibility. And so, today we only think of him for his ultimate act of betrayal. But in the day before that, the days leading up to that, he was probably one of the most well-known, most respected, most trusted disciples. And so much like the tragic fall of Benedict Arnold, this great general is winning all these victories, and then he's tempted, makes the tragic mistake of betraying his country. You have Judas, who probably was respected and trusted, and he too betrayed, in this case, his Lord. The other side of it is that, as I was sharing at the beginning, Jesus is teaching every day in the temples, but he's not capitalizing. He's not capitalizing on all of the excitement, all the anticipation, the throngs of people that, if he stirred them up and if he tried to, start a little bit of revolt or something, who knows what might have happened. But that wasn't what Jesus had come to do. Maybe this is where Judas became disillusioned. Maybe he wanted Jesus to assert himself, to be the kind of military Messiah that so many were looking for. And maybe that's what Judas was looking for as well. So maybe he was tempted by the money. Maybe he was a thief. John's gospel certainly would suggest it. Maybe he was tempted by the fact that he could force Jesus' hand, in a sense. Maybe he thought, this is Jesus. He just needs a little nudge, a little kind of push in the right direction. Tragically, he was wrong. And so his name goes down, like Benedict Arnold, as somebody who was a traitor, somebody who had betrayed, in this case, had betrayed his Lord. And a very sad thing. And we're going to contrast Judas when we talk about Peter, because Peter let his Lord down as well in the garden of the high priest. But we'll get to that. Not tomorrow, but on Friday. So there we are for now. Judas has decided that he's going to betray Jesus. He's going to look for an opportunity. Remember that we heard that Jesus is in the temple teaching every day, but at night he would go to the Mount of Olives. Keep that thought in mind. And we'll pick up the story again tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.